Hello, all my crafty people out there. It is time for our weekly project. If you have not been here before, my name is Stephanie and I upcycle clothing, generally things I thrift from my local stores or sometimes estate sales. And this week, I kind of wanted to play off last week's pool party attire. I thought, well, maybe I need something to actually go over my bathing suit. So I found this at my local thrift store for $2.99, and actually it was two towels, but it was not. The other one wasn't vintage. This is obviously vintage. We probably all remember that fleur-de-lis design, and the right side of it has a lot of staining. Not bad, but it's stained. It's got some spots like that one. So I think we're going to be using the wrong side, the fuzzy side of the towel for our project, along with some pieces that I could not find locally. I could not hunt them down, and I had to go to the eBay. But I found these really beautiful orange vintage towels. They're all small. I didn't realize how small our towels used to be. And this one's kind of got a vine kind of pattern. And they're in good shape. I mean, you could use them, but they're thin, so I think they're going to be good to repurpose. So I have two of the bath towels, and I don't remember this being listed, but I got a washcloth too. So I got some ideas. So if you want to follow along, like, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I'll catch y'all at the table. Okay, everybody, let's talk about what we've got for materials and how we're going to make this work. I want to make a jacket, just a short jacket to go over my bathing suit or just to wear during the summer if it ever cools off. So we have 3 towels and a hand and a washcloth. So I've got one big orange one yellow one. Now this is the one we're going to use for the sleeves, and you can see there's stains on it, and this is what you consider the right side of the towel. But voila, there's not a stain on the other side. It's like it didn't go through. So we're going to use this brighter yellow part as our exterior on our sleeve. And of course, again, washcloth. I got an idea for this, but we're going to see if I can make it work. It may become a collar. We'll see. You know how that goes. And this one I'm going to use to show you how we're going to cut it out. Now, again, I'm using this this Quick Sew 3085. I paid $1 for it at a some kind of charity sale, and it's got everything in it, and it's uncut except for the instructions. There's no instructions, which that's okay. We know how to put the jacket together. All good. And really all I wanted it for was the front, the back, and the sleeve arch. So I've traced out the sleeve arch. And I'm not going to be going at an angle like this. I'm going to be going straight because we're going to use the natural sides of the towel to make the sleeve. I just needed this curve so it would fit good into the sleeve hole. So there's our traced sleeve part. And then we have the front and back that I've traced. And honestly, it's longer than I need. And the two pieces are very symmetrical, other than, of course, the neckline, which should be the only thing that's really different in this particular little jacket. This obviously means I need to cut this on the fold. We won't be able to do that, but I'll show you how we're going to fix that problem. Now, you cannot use this towel, being as short as they are, in this format. This would be the logical way to fold it and put your jacket down. Now, I say this due to the size that I'm cutting. In other words, if you were making a smaller jacket, this particular cutting process might work fine. Could work out just fine for you. This should be on the fold, but again, you can see I've got this overhang. So we got to figure out how to get what we need out of what we have. Does that make sense? So we're going to have to fold it the other way in half. Shortwise, like this, over the short length. And then I'm going to do this without having my paper fly everywhere. Then what we can do is we can get the majority of the length out of it here. And I don't need my jacket to be this long. This is a really long jacket. I've already measured. I could take a couple inches off of the bottom, no problem. I'd like to be as long as possible, but it doesn't have to be this long. Now this one has the fold. We're going to have to make a seam for that fold. And I'm going to use the side that has just the salvage edge as opposed to the rolled hem that's on that side. I don't know why they're different, but this is the salvage edge. It'll be easier to seam. It won't be bulky or as bulky. So we're going to be cutting our patterns in half. Well, not in half, but we're going to take the top off. So I'm going to take about 8 inches from this corner down to this line here. I'm going to make a fold line about 8 inches down. So let's just get my ruler real quick. And we're going to go 8 inches down from the tip of this shoulder right there. All right. And we're making sure it's straight on the side here. And that's 8 inches down. Okay. So we're going to be cutting off this 8-inch piece from the top. That will give us almost the full length as far as the body goes. We're going to take this piece and put it over here on the salvage after we've cut this out. And I'll show you how that'll work. Like that. And we are going to be able to use the fold line on this one. And there's enough between here, the end of this pattern, and the end over there to put that 8-inch piece over here to cut out the shoulder. Now we're going to have to add a 1/2-inch seam allowance on this end and on both of these ends to make it the right length to fit our arm and everything. But we've got room to, kind of mess around with that. I know it all sounds crazy right now, but let me go ahead and cut these two patterns exactly where I'm talking about at the 8-inch mark. Again, line these up and make sure they're lined up so when you cut them, they're exactly the same. Because you want these seam lines right here on the side to match. You do not want them not to match, obviously. They're the important seams when putting these two together, other than the shoulders. Okay, so let's see. Just make sure we got them lined up. And once we do that, I'm going to take this away so we can get a better view of it. So both of them are lined up here on the sides and at the bottom. So so that side seam, you want them to match up. The front is not as critical because it's taking into account a zipper, which we're not doing, but they're very close. So we want to make sure both of them are the same. Measure again. There's my 8-inch mark. So we're going to cut those off. Make sure that line is really nice and creased. And I'll have to rewrite my pattern number on it, but no worries there. So I'm going to cut this off. And I'm going to lay it down on my towel and show you how we're going to cut them out. Okay, this is what we've got it laid out to be like. This is the back. And so we've taken our cutoff piece and put it up here on the salvage. Now it's falling on the fold, which it should. This is not, but I'm leaving this salvage open. I'm not cutting that off because that's what I'm going to use to make the back seam on the back piece. We've got to take seam allowances into account. Sorry, had to turn the fan on, it was a little tepid up in here. So I've got a 1/2-inch seam allowance on the bottom of this piece and a 1/2-inch seam allowance at the top of this piece because we're going to have to make up that cut essentially. So I'm going to try something I usually don't try because most of this is kind of straight. I'm going to try to do this with the rotary cutter because I think it'll cut better and I won't be lifting it because it took me a bit to make sure it's all straight, and I use my little quilt clips to hold it in place. So cross your fingers. I'm going to try and cut it with the rotary cutter. Again, I'm not working with I mean, it's not super exact, so I think we'll be okay. I'm going to use my ruler as well. Okay, before I cut the front piece, which, by the way, I don't need a seam allowance. This is supposed to be open, so I'm flushing it to the edge of the salvage side of the towel. And make sure that your towels were both facing the right way when you started cutting. That helps. So this is the back side that I've already cut out, and I just want to make sure that this seam allowance right here is the same, or as close as humanly possible. So that's why I laid this down, just to make sure that I've got the same amount of seam on the side there. I'm just going to fold this back up, and I've left the pins on it for right now, and the top of it over here. But we're just going to use our nice ruler, get this straight edge cut first. And I like to take the ruler and kind of pull my fabric over, or paper over, make sure everything's nice and straight. Now I did change this blade out, but I guess this towel's giving it a run for the money. I'm just going to go straight up. Voila. And then I'm going to cut this little part out. And then we'll cut the top half that we've separated from this. It's not too bad cutting with the rotary like this. I'm just not as accurate as I'd like to be, maybe. So that's this. And then also when I'm doing this, I have to cut the fold open. Let's put this out of the way for a second. So I'm just going to cut this fold open. And you can clean this up if it's too much. That's not a problem. So see, I can clean that up. Make that more of a 1/2 inch. Just take my rotary cutter and clean that edge. Voila! So that's the front of the jacket. Now we need this leftover piece here to do the top. Again, we've already done this to the back, but just wanted to show you how I was kind of trying to make sure that we were even. And of course we can always do the side trick, you know, where we put the what is it, the little opening on the sides. If we don't come out even, it's always a way. It's always a way. You just got to find it. So I need to leave a seam allowance at the bottom of this. So that's what I'm doing, leaving a seam allowance. It's not a really thick seam allowance, and make sure your towels are still even. Don't want one shorter than the other. It's not a big seam allowance, but we just need a seam allowance. And of course we can remove it if we need to. Remove some of it. Trying to get that positioned up there. Cut this here. And cut this one over here. While I got it pinned down, put a little more weight, well, a little weight on there. Like that. Keep it pinned here. Again, this is not something I usually do with a rotary, so kind of interesting to try something different. And then I gotta turn it around, kind of hold it in place, put it back in place, and cut the top. Voila! All right, there's the top of the top, or the front. Got our excess, and I think we may have enough excess for some pockets. We'll see which ones look better. They really, neither one of them cut really well, so we just might make pockets out of some of them. I'm not sure. All right, let's get to our sleeve. I'm going to cut the sleeve up, and then we're going to start sewing. Okay, this is going to be our sleeve. I am not worried about this part because I'm going to be cutting this sleeve straight. All I really want is this arch. And so I've done a little pinning, not my usual traditional pinning. And I'm going to try to use the rotary cutter to again go, and I'm going to go off the side. I'm not going to worry about this point, because when we sew them together, this can be wider or shorter, or we can take it off with the serger, whatever. So I'm going to go all the way up over the arch. And that is actually going to take off a lot of our staining as well, but we're still going to be using the brighter wrong side of the towel to make our sleeve. This is the right side, so it's a little duller. But I pinned it down here at the bottom just to make sure that we got the right length, because I'm keeping the length of the entire sleeve. So I'm just going to cut from one side to the other, and we will start sewing. Okay, this is the back. I've got it separated from its papers, but I want to keep them together because the back and the front look almost identical now, other than maybe the neckline. Well, no, there's not a neckline on that. Anyway, I want to do some kind of fringe where those seams meet in the on the top. So I don't want them to be plain. So I think I'm going to take the fringe off of my off of the towel ends and use them for the top. Now I really don't need, I'm going to sew within this piece, the salvage piece that fringes. So I'm just cutting off about 1/4 inch above that. And then I think I'll have enough to do the front and the back. And I will have to pull out the seam on the side to give a little bit more length. I hate to lose that tag, but you know, it is what it is. Can't keep the tag because it makes it kind of look authentic, you know, kind of cool. So there. These will still be good for pockets. It's just we're going to use the fringe to decorate our seam. Otherwise, I think it'll look plain. So once I get this done, the first seam we're actually going to make is the one down the back of the jacket where the fold should be, but we weren't able to cut on a fold. So we're going to seam this first. Then we'll be able to match up the back to the front and add our fringe. So let me go seam this. I am just going to seam within that salvage. I'm not making a really big seam, about 1/4 inch. And then I'll, like I said, we'll be able to add the fringe. Okay, I have done the center seam that again would have been a fold, but I didn't have a fold to use. And it fits perfectly with the top that I'm going to reattach to make the whole back. But I went ahead and I cut off the fringe of the towels, and I was able to get enough to space it across this seam line. So it's going to give the seam line a better look than just a boop seam, you know. So I'm going to go and actually stitch this down first. Sorry. I'm going to go stitch this down first, and then I'm going to put this on. I just want to secure this before I put the top on, and then we'll do some top stitching possibly to make sure that this looks nice and clean. Okay, now we've attached the fringe. I just wanted to secure it before I put the two pieces together. And right sides together. We're going to put the top that we cut off and this, and we're going to sew this down and then pull this up, and that'll be the back made. All we need to do is probably maybe do a top stitch on it. We'll see what it looks like when we're done. I am going to go ahead and put a top stitch on this where the seam allowance is going up towards the shoulder. That'll keep the fringe laying down proper, and I am going to do it from the right side so I don't catch any of my fringe. Now you could tape your fringe, and that might help you keep it in place without getting out of line, but I can feel the seam under here, so I shouldn't have any problems tacking it down. It is thick, fingers crossed. Now we're going to give the same treatment to the front of the jacket, both of the fronts, as we did the back. I'm going to tack down the fringe, and then we will take and apply the top half of the front on each one and top stitch down the seam so we can make sure everything lays right. Then we'll put the shoulder seams together, and we'll be figuring out how we're going to close this jacket. Okay, we have our back all nice and put together with our fringe. And then we have both of our fronts, again, put together with our fringe in the front. So we're going to go put our shoulder seams together. And the reason I'm taking this step next, although I guess it would be logical regardless, I'm taking this next step of shoulders because I want to make some other decisions. One, collar. Do I have enough in this washcloth that I have somewhere over here? Whoop, there it is. To make a collar. I think I do. I think I could actually go around and around the back, but I've got to measure it out to make sure. So that's what my next step is after I sew the shoulder seams, is deciding how this collar is going to be finished. Okay, we have the shoulder seams put in, and now we may need to make a decision on the closure. Now it doesn't have to have a closure. You could go without a closure, and that would be fine too. I just personally want a little bit of a something. The pattern had a zipper, and that would look great, but I don't want to fight with the fringe and the thickness of the towel and all that. So I've come up with a plan that I just want a button closure up here, but I don't want to have to take this over. So we're going to make, out of the yellow, this little triangle. And of course we'll sew it right sides together and push it over. But that little triangle right there will essentially look like this. And then we'll have a button. Boop! I think that'll be really cute. I could do it in orange. I have experimented. I wish y'all could answer me more immediately. If I did it in orange, the button would show up better. You think I should do it in orange? I'm thinking I might do it in orange. Okay, so back to the original orange. We're going to put it this way. And then when it's sewn on, button like that. Then we're going to work on this collar. So let me just go sew this little triangle over here onto this piece so it'll fold over. And that'll also finish this raw edge, because I finished this one with a little teeny tiny rollover kind of hem. And this will finish that one. Okay, I have my little flap sewn on, and it's got a buttonhole in it, which I had to make the buttonhole differently, kind of manually, as opposed to the buttonhole thing, maker foot, because it's too big. But I think the orange looks better because that white button's going to show up on there really well. And I'll sew it on later. The thing we got to worry about now is the collar. And I still, like I said, I have this washcloth, and I'd like to make a collar out of it. So, and it's already edged and everything, and it's 11 inches long, and I think I need about 20 inches to go in here, or at least that's my rough measurement. What I want to do is cut some 3-inch, maybe 3.5-inch I'd like a nice super fly collar. About 3.5 inches on each of the sides of this rag, and then sew them together. But before I sew them together, I'm going to pin them on here and measure and see if they'll make it and it'll work. And then I'll also know how much seam I need to put them together. In other words, how short it needs to be. Trust me, I'm going to give it a try. So again, let's cut the two edges 3 inches each. Just try to line this washcloth up pretty good. About 3, let's go with 3.5 inches, just to give us a little bit of wiggle room. And there's plenty here to do that too, so want a super fly collar. Oh, if I can find my... And if this doesn't work, we'll finish the collar with some kind of edge, you know, even if I have to just turn it under. There's another option. We'll put it that way. So 3.5 here. All right, like that. We got some leftover. Might need it. Never know. So let's take our collar and just get a good feel for what we're going to have to do to get a collar around here. Now again, I'm going to pin it right side to the wrong side of the jacket. And let's just see if we got enough to actually do this. We're just gauging right now because I'm making this part up a little bit. Okay, a lot bit. So just gonna roughly pin this around like that. And it looks like we're gonna have enough. And then I'm going to take the other one, and again, I'm going to pin the right side to the wrong side. Let's see if we can get this to work. Because usually what you have with a collar is two pieces sewn together to make kind of a pocket that'll go over the edge of your collar. But since we're just going to be using one single layer, gotta make sure that, oh yeah, we are going to be good. So that means I got plenty here that I can seam. And then what will happen is when I didn't pin it right there, but this is pinned right sides to wrong sides. So when I turn it in like this, the right side will be out and the seam will be under the collar, which is fine because it's terry cloth, so it's not a big issue. Hope you can see the vision. Okay, the collar's going to work out actually pretty well. The washcloth is 11 by 11, and I measured it flat on the board, and it actually ended up being about 22 inches, so maybe a little less. So the washcloths were perfect. I seamed them. I've attached them to the right side of the washcloth to the wrong side of the jacket. And we're going to just run a small 1/4 inch seam along this because we got to contend with our button closure, which I should have done after the collar, but you know, making it up as we go. Once we do that, we can turn the collar out and maybe top stitch that down. I'm not sure. We're going to have to see what it looks like. So let's go to the machine and put a 1/4 inch there. Okay, I am super excited about the way the collar turned out. It laid in there just right, and it's flexible. It doesn't have 2 layers, so it's not having trouble taking the curve of the neck, which is great. I went ahead and sewed my button on because it's so cute. So I have pinned back my fringe a little bit on the front and the back, and the reason I'm doing that is it's time for our sleeves. Now, one more thing, I did mention pockets, and I debated on pockets. I had some leftovers and I could put pockets in, but to tell you the truth, I really like this design and I didn't want to cover it up, so we're not going to have pockets for once. Woo. But it's time to put our sleeves in, and remember, we're going to do this side out because it's the cleaner side, and I just want to make sure there's not anything major stained that's going to show up front or back. I think we're good. That one goes either way. It's not got a stain, and this one doesn't either, really. It's both of them are in good shape as far as the outside, not the inside. So I marked the center of the top of the sleeve with just a pin, and we're going to start at the shoulder. That's where that will go, and we're going to pin it right sides together. Let me take my button off. There we go. We're going to pin it right sides together, and the right side is this side here. And then when we turn it in, obviously the seam will be on the inside. So right sides together. First thing we do is that center seam right here. So we're going to pin that, pin around, and see where we get. I did cut a little extra with this. I think if you remember when I cut the sleeve, I cut it all the way to the edge of the towel. So that was just in case I needed extra, and of course I can take it off when I'm actually sewing I'm going to sew the seam under the arm last. Okay, we have the sleeves in, and I went ahead and top stitched with the seam towards the body. So just put a simple top stitch. And now I've got it turned inside out. It's time for our final seam. And so we'll be going down the sleeve and down the side of the jacket. And I'm going to leave about 3 inches from the end of the jacket, and I'm going to do the little split on the sides like I did for the 30-minute pink shirt, and I think that'll be a nice finish off. So again, stitch from here all the way to the end, and we'll make that little, I think it's called a pleat. It's not really a pleat, I don't know. Anyway, so off to the machine, and then we'll be trying it on. Oh, and I'm going to do this on the sewing machine, not the serger. You could do it on the serger, simple, easy, but since I want to put this little pleat in, it'll be better if I do it by the machine. Oh, and this is all I had left over. Not a lot of waste in this particular project, so super excited. See you in the finish. Okay, everybody, here it is. I'm a super fly. I'm in love with this. You had to get a little creative because of the size of the towel, but it was fun. And it's a great pool / beach / anytime kind of jacket. I could see me wearing this out. It's just stinking cute. So I didn't find all of it in the wild. I did have to go to eBay for the orange towels. It's hard to find vintage towels in the wild, for me at least. But if you get a chance, by all means, give this a try. It's a lot of fun. And if you would please like, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will catch y'all on the flip side of our next project.